Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the human ship Defiance. Her hands gripped the metal rail as she watched the battle rage in space around them. Bright flashes of light lit up the darkness as weapons fired between the ships. The war against the Zarian had been going on for 3 long years. Today was supposed to be the day it all ended. "Enemy ships are falling back," reported Lieutenant Davis from his station. "The Zarian fleet is breaking apart." Sarah nodded but kept her eyes on the main screen. She could see the insect-like ships of their allies, the Vraktor, moving in formation. Beside them, the crystal ships of the Zephyrians sparkled like diamonds as they fired their energy weapons. For 3 years, humans had fought side by side with these alien races. They had bled together. They had died together. "Admiral Reed is sending a message," the communications officer called out. "All human ships are to prepare for the final push." Sarah activated her comm system. "All units, this is Captain Chun. We're going to finish this today. The Zarian will surrender or be destroyed. Stay close to our coalition friends and watch each other's backs." The human fleet moved forward. There were 57 human ships in total. Not many compared to the hundreds of coalition vessels, but each human ship packed enough firepower to level a small moon. Sarah felt proud as she watched them advance in perfect formation. The Zarian were an ancient enemy that had threatened the entire galaxy. They consumed whole planets and left nothing behind but dead rocks. When they first appeared in human space 2 years ago, Earth had immediately joined the coalition to fight them. It was the right thing to do. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings from the coalition ships," said the sensor operator. His voice carried worry. Sarah turned to look at him. "What kind of readings?" "Their weapons are powering up, but there are no Zarian ships in their targeting range. It's like they're aiming at ... double quote. The young man's face went pale. "Captain, they're targeting us?" Before Sarah could respond, the first blast hit the human ship Courage. The vessel, commanded by Captain Torres, exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Sarah watched in horror as her friend and 300 crew members died instantly. "What the hell is happening?" Sarah shouted. More blasts came from the coalition ships. The Vraktor vessels opened fire with their plasma cannons. The Zephyrian ships fired their crystal energy beams. All of them were aimed at human targets. "Coalition ships are attacking us," Lieutenant Davis yelled. "All coalition ships have turned hostile." Sarah's mind struggled to understand what was happening. These were their allies. They had saved each other's lives countless times. They had shared food, stories, and strategies. Why were they shooting at humans? "All human ships, this is Admiral Reed," came the voice over the comm. "We are under attack by coalition forces. Repeat, coalition forces have turned on us. All ships defend yourselves." The space around them became a nightmare. Human ships that had been flying in formation with their allies were now sitting ducks. The coalition had waited for the perfect moment when the humans were relaxed and trusting. Many human ships died in the first few minutes without ever firing. A shot back. Sarah gritted her teeth. "Return fire. Hit those Vraktor ships with everything we have." The Defiance turned its guns on the nearest insect ship. The human weapons tore through the alien hull like paper. But for every coalition ship they destroyed, 2 more human vessels exploded. "We're outnumbered 5 to 1, reported the tactical officer. "We can't win this fight." Sarah looked at the screen showing the battle. Of the 57 human ships, only 23 were still fighting. The rest were either destroyed or badly damaged and drifting in space. The coalition had planned this perfectly. "Captain Chun, this is Admiral Reed. We need to retreat. Get as many ships out as you can." Sarah hated the idea of running, but she knew the Admiral was right. This was not a battle they could win. All remaining human ships follow the Defiance. "We're getting out of here." The surviving human vessels began to pull back from the battle. The coalition ships followed them, firing constantly. Sarah watched as the destroyer Hammer took a direct hit to its engine room. The ship started spinning out of control. "Hammer is losing power," came the desperate voice of its captain. We can't keep up, Sarah made a quick decision. Defiance will cover your retreat. Get your ship moving. She ordered her crew to turn around and face the pursuing coalition ships. The Defiance fired everything it had, buying time for the damaged hammer to escape. A Zephyrian crystal beam hit their port side, and Sarah felt the ship shake under the impact. Hull breach on deck 7, someone reported. We're losing atmosphere. Seal it off and keep fighting, Sarah ordered. The retreat continued for what felt like hours. Every few minutes, another human ship would fall behind and be destroyed. The coalition showed no mercy. They hunted down every human vessel they could find. By the time they reached the edge of the system, only 18 human ships remained. 18 out of 57. Sarah felt sick as she looked at the casualty reports. Thousands of human lives had been lost in a matter of hours. Admiral Reed is requesting all ship captains for an emergency meeting, the communications officer said quietly. Sarah joined the video conference with the other surviving captains. Admiral Reed looked older than his 60 years. His usually neat uniform was torn and dirty. Behind him, smoke drifted through the bridge of his flagship. Ladies and gentlemen, the Admiral began, his voice heavy with grief. We have been betrayed by those we trusted most. The coalition has branded us as war criminals. They claim we committed atrocities against civilian populations during the war. That's a lie, shouted Captain Morrison from the cruiser Liberty. We followed all the rules of war. We protected civilians. I know it's a lie, Admiral Reed replied. But the galaxy believes them now. We are alone out here. Earth needs to know what happened. We need to get home and prepare for what comes next. Sarah listened as the Admiral gave orders for the long journey back to Earth. Her mind was still trying to process the betrayal. She thought about all the times she had shared meals with Richter officers. She remembered the Zephyrian commander, who had saved her ship during the Battle of Kepler Station. Had it all been an act? Had they been planning this from the beginning? Captain Chun, Admiral Reed said, pulling her from her thoughts. Your ship is in the best condition. You'll take point on the journey home. Yes, sir, Sarah replied. What do we tell Earth about what happened here? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was cold as space itself. We tell them the truth. We tell them that we learned something important about our place in this galaxy. We tell them that being nice and following the rules doesn't matter when others are willing. To stab you in the back, Sarah nodded. She understood. The humans had tried to be good allies, good partners in this war. They had held back their most dangerous weapons and tactics because they wanted to be seen as civilized. They had trusted their coalition friends completely. That trust had gotten thousands of humans killed. As the Defiance led the surviving human fleet toward home, Sarah made a promise to herself and to the memory of all the friends she had lost. If the coalition wanted to play by these rules, then humans would learn to play by them too. But next time, humanity would not be the ones caught off guard. Next time, humanity would be ready. 6 months had passed since the betrayal. Admiral Marcus Reed stood in the underground command center beneath the mountains of Colorado. The room hummed with activity as hundreds of scientists and military officers worked at their stations. This place did not exist on any official maps. To the outside world, it was just another mountain. Admiral, the news reports are getting worse, said Colonel Hayes, handing him a datapad. The coalition is broadcasting their version of events across every major news network in the galaxy. Reed read the headlines with disgust. The stories all said the same thing. Humans were war criminals. Humans had attacked innocent civilians during the Zarian War. The coalition had been forced to stop them to protect the galaxy. Every major alien government believed these lies. What about our own people? Reed asked. Earth's population is angry, sir. They want revenge, but most other human colonies are scared. Some are even calling for us to surrender to coalition justice. Reed set down the pad and walked to the large window overlooking the main laboratory. Below him, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked with her team on something that would change everything. Project Prometheus had been his idea, born in the dark hours after their Return to Earth. Any word from Captain Chun? Reed asked. She's finishing up the new pilot training program. The first class graduates tomorrow, Reed nodded. Sarah Chun had changed after the betrayal. The friendly, optimistic officer he once knew was gone. In her place was someone harder, colder. Someone who understood that the galaxy was not a kind place for those who trusted too easily. Down in the laboratory, Dr. Vasquez studied a piece of Vector technology they had recovered from the battle. The insect-like aliens were proud of their plasma weapons. They thought no other species could understand how they worked. They were wrong. The plasma containment system is actually quite simple, Vasquez explained to her assistant. The Vector use biological components that we can replicate with synthetic materials. But we can make them better. She pointed to a screen showing the weapon's design. See here? They limit the plasma temperature to prevent damage to their own ships. We don't need to worry about that. We can run these weapons much hotter. Her assistant, a young engineer named Thomas Park, looked worried. Won't that make them unstable? Only if you're trying to keep your ship in one piece, Vasquez replied with a cold smile. Our new ships won't need to worry about long-term survival. In another part of the facility, Captain Chun watched as her new pilots practiced in flight simulators. These were not the same kind of training programs humans had used before. The old programs taught pilots to work with allies, to protect civilian targets, to follow the rules of war. The new programs taught different lessons. Remember, Chun told the young pilots, the coalition species all have weaknesses. The Vector depend on their hive communication systems. Disrupt those and they become confused and slow. The Zephyrians need to stay in formation to use their crystal beam weapons effectively. Break their formation and they're sitting ducks. One of the pilots, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, raised her hand. Captain, what about trying to negotiate with them? Maybe we can convince them to listen to our side of the story. The room went silent. Chun's expression did not change, but everyone could feel the temperature drop. She walked over to Lieutenant Kim and looked her in the eye. Lieutenant, let me tell you something about negotiation. 6 months ago, I watched 300 of my friends die because we trusted our allies. I watched Captain Torres burn alive in his ship because we believed the coalition would honor their word. Do you think people who would do that care about our side of the story? Kim looked down at her hands. No, ma'am. The only language the coalition understands is force. When we're done with our training, we're going to speak that language very clearly. Back in the command center, Admiral Reed received a report that made him smile for the first time in months. The testing of their new stealth technology had been successful. Human ships could now move through space without being detected by coalition sensors. How did we manage this breakthrough? He asked the lead scientist. We studied the way coalition sensors work, sir. Each species uses different detection methods. The Vector use bioelectric fields. The Zephyrians use crystal resonance patterns. We developed a coating that absorbs both types of signals. What about range and duration? Our ships can stay hidden for up to 72 hours at a time, more than enough for hit-and-run attacks. Reed nodded with satisfaction. The coalition had made a mistake when they betrayed humanity. They had shown humans their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. Now, humanity would use all of that knowledge against them. Dr. Vasquez joined the Admiral in his office later that evening. She carried a case containing what looked like a normal communication device. This is the prototype. For Operation Silent Death, she explained. It looks like a standard coalition emergency beacon. But when activated, it sends out a signal that overloads Vector nervous systems. Any insect within a kilometer will die instantly. What about the Zephyrians? Different approach for them. Their crystal bodies conduct energy very efficiently. We've developed a feedback weapon that turns their own energy against them. One pulse and their entire body structure collapses. Reed examined the devices. Before the betrayal, he would have called these weapons too cruel, too dangerous. Now he saw them as tools of justice. How many can you produce? As many as you need, Admiral. My team is working around the clock. The next morning, Reed attended the graduation ceremony for Sean's first class of pilots. 50 men and women stood, at attention in their new black uniforms. These were not the bright blue uniforms of the old Earth fleet. These were the colors of shadow and night. "You are no longer ordinary pilots," Reed told them. "You are the sharp edge of humanity's revenge. The Coalition thinks they have beaten us. They think we will crawl back to Earth and hide. They are wrong." He paused and looked at each face in the group. All of them had lost friends or family in the betrayal. All of them understood what needed to be done. The Coalition made one fatal mistake. They let some of us live. They should have killed every human in that battle, because now we know exactly who they really are. We know they cannot be trusted. We know they see us as nothing more than useful tools to be discarded when convenient. Reed's voice grew harder. "But we are not tools, we are not victims. We are human beings, and we do not forgive those who betray us. You will carry that message to every Coalition world. Every Coalition ship, every Coalition soldier who thought they could stab us in the back without consequences." Captain Chun stepped forward. "Admiral, the first squadron is ready for deployment." "Excellent. Begin Operation Ghost Hunt immediately. Target priority: isolated Coalition patrol ships, no survivors, no distress calls. Make them disappear." As the pilots filed out to their new ships, Reed felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The Coalition had taught humanity an important lesson about the nature of the galaxy. Now humanity would teach them a lesson in return. The lesson was simple: never betray a species that remembers every wrong done to them, and never leave alive those who have nothing left to lose. The war was about to begin again. But this time, humanity would not be fighting to protect the galaxy. This time, they would be fighting to make sure no one would ever dare to betray them again. Captain Sarah Chun floated in the darkness of space inside her new ship, the Shadow. The vessel was completely black and absorbed all light that hit it. No Coalition sensors could detect it. To their instruments, this part of space appeared empty, but it was not empty. Chun and her squadron of 12 ships waited like predators in the night. "Target confirmed," whispered Lieutenant Kim through the comm system. "Coalition patrol group, 3 ships, 2 Vector vessels, and 1 Zephyrian escort." Chun studied the enemy ships on her screen. They moved slowly through space, following their regular patrol route. The insect-like Vector ships looked like flying beetles with their dark green hulls. The crystal Zephyrian ship sparkled like a diamond as it caught light from the nearby star. "Remember the drill," Chun said quietly to her pilots. "Fast, silent, total destruction. No one gets away to tell the story." The Coalition ships had no idea death was approaching them. For 6 months, strange things had been happening in their territory. Patrol ships would simply vanish. Supply convoys would disappear without sending distress signals. Entire outposts would go dark overnight. The Coalition leaders were starting to worry, but they had no idea what was causing these disappearances. They blamed equipment failures, accidents, even pirates. They never suspected that the humans they had betrayed were hunting them in the darkness. "All units, begin approach," Chun ordered. The 12 human ships moved forward like ghosts. Their new engines made no heat signature. Their hulls absorbed all sensor signals. To the Coalition patrol, nothing had changed. They continued their boring routine. Never knowing that death surrounded them, Chun's ship moved into position behind the largest Vector vessel. She could see through her scope the insect creatures moving around inside their ship. 6 months ago, she might have felt sorry for them. Now she felt nothing but cold anger. "Activating neural disruption pulse," she said. The weapon Dr. Vasquez had designed worked perfectly. An invisible wave of energy passed through the Vector ship. Every insect on board stopped moving instantly. Their nervous systems simply shut down. In seconds, the entire crew was dead. At the same time, Lieutenant Kim attacked the Zephyrian ship. The crystal beings relied on their energy shields for protection. But Kim's weapon sent a feedback pulse that turned their own shields into weapons against them. The crystal creatures shattered like glass inside their ship. The second Vector vessel realized something was wrong when their patrol leader stopped responding to communication. But before they could react, Lieutenant Park fired his plasma cannon. The shot tore through the insect ship from nose to tail. The vessel broke apart in a shower of metal and fire. The entire attack took less than 3 minutes. 3 coalition ships and their crews were gone. No distress signals were sent. No evidence was left behind. Clean kill, reported Kim. No survivors. Good, Chun replied. Mark this system as cleared. Move to the next target. As the human ships vanished back into the darkness, the wreckage of the Coalition patrol drifted silently in space. It would be days before anyone found them, and when they did, there would be no clues about what had happened. This was the 15th successful attack by Chun's squadron in 2 months. Other human squadrons were operating throughout Coalition space, striking targets and disappearing like smoke. The enemy was starting to panic. On the Vector homeworld, General Zix stood before the High Council with disturbing news. The insect leader's forearms gestured wildly as he spoke. We have lost 47 patrol ships in the past 2 months, he buzzed in his alien language. 17 supply convoys have vanished. 3 communication stations have gone silent. One of the council members, an ancient Vector with scars from many battles, clicked his mandibles nervously. What do our investigations show? Nothing useful. The ships are destroyed by different types of weapons. Some are torn apart by plasma fire. Others show signs of energy feedback. Some crews appear to have died from neural disruption. Could this be the humans? Asked another council member. General Zix paused. The humans were beaten. Their fleet was destroyed. Intelligence reports say they have retreated to their home system and are hiding. But privately, Zix was not so sure. The attacks were too organized, too precise, and the weapons being used were unlike anything the Coalition had seen before. On the crystal world of Zephyr Prime, similar meetings were taking place. The beautiful crystal beings were discovering that their trade routes were no longer safe. Ships would leave port and never arrive at their destinations. Commander Resonance, a tall blue crystal being, reported to his superiors with growing concern. The patterns suggest these are not random attacks. Someone is deliberately targeting our infrastructure. Who would dare attack the Coalition? Asked the Elder Crystal, her voice ringing like musical notes. Unknown, but whoever they are, they know our weaknesses. They know exactly how to kill us most efficiently. What the Coalition did not understand was that humans had spent months studying every piece of alien technology they could find. Dr. Vasquez and her team had learned the secrets of Coalition weapons, shields, and sensors. They had discovered weaknesses that the aliens themselves did not know existed. Back in space, Chion's squadron prepared for their most daring mission yet. Intelligence had located a Coalition command ship traveling through a remote system. This was not just another patrol vessel. This ship carried high-ranking officers from both the Vector and Zephyrian military. This target is different, Chun told her pilots during the briefing. The command ship has heavy shields and escort vessels. We'll need to be smarter than usual. Lieutenant Kim studied the tactical display. How do we get through their defenses? Chun smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. We use their own confidence against them. The Coalition thinks they're safe in their own territory. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The plan was simple but deadly. The human ships would attack the escort vessels first, using hit-and-run tactics to draw them away from the command ship. Once the escorts were destroyed, the command ship would be alone and vulnerable. Remember, Chun said, we want to capture some of the officers alive. Admiral Reed has questions for them. The attack began at midnight, ship time. The human vessels emerged from stealth mode around the Coalition formation like wolves surrounding sheep. The escort ships, 2 Vector destroyers and a Zephyrian cruiser, reacted quickly but not quickly enough. Lieutenant Park's ship fired first, hitting one of the destroyers with a plasma burst that melted through its armor. The ship exploded in a ball of green fire. The surviving escorts tried to form a defensive circle around the command ship, but the humans were too fast. Jean's ship darted between the enemy vessels like a shadow, firing precise shots that crippled engines and weapon systems. The coalition ships found themselves fighting an enemy they could barely see, against weapons they did not understand. In 10 minutes, all 3 escort ships were destroyed. The command ship found itself alone, surrounded by invisible predators. Coalition vessel, this is Captain Chen of the Earth Fleet, she broadcast on all frequencies. Your escorts are dead. Your shields are down. Surrender now or join them. Inside the command ship, panic spread among the crew. They had heard rumors of human attacks, but no one had believed the stories. Now they were face to face with the reality. The coalition commander, a proud Vrector general named Thax, refused to believe what was happening. This is impossible. The humans were defeated. Their fleet was destroyed. Apparently not all of it, replied his Zephyrian assistant, her crystal body glowing with fear. The command ship tried to flee, but human ships blocked every escape route. Chion's voice came over the come again, cold and merciless. You have 30 seconds to surrender. After that, you become another mystery for your people to investigate. General Thax looked around his bridge at the terrified faces of his crew. He thought about the propaganda broadcasts claiming humans were weak and beaten. He thought about the easy victory they had celebrated. 6 months ago, he was beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. We surrender, he said quietly. Chun's ships moved in to capture the command vessel. Another victory for the Ghost Squadron. Another step in humanity's plan for revenge. The silent hunt continued, and the coalition was finally beginning to understand that they were the prey. Admiral Marcus Reed stood in the interrogation room. Looking down at General Thax, the Vrector officer was strapped to a chair designed for his insect body. His forearms were bound and his large compound eyes showed fear for the first time in his long military career. You wanted to know what human war crimes look like, Reed said quietly. Today you're going to learn. 3 months had passed since Captain Chun captured the coalition command ship. The information they had extracted from the prisoners had been very useful. Reed now knew the locations of every major coalition base, supply depot, and communication center. More importantly, he knew something the coalition did not expect. The aliens had been so confident in their betrayal that they had never prepared for a real war with humanity. They thought humans were beaten and hiding. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Please, General Thax buzzed in broken human language, we can negotiate. The coalition is willing to discuss terms, Reed laughed, but the sound held no warmth. Negotiate? Like you did 6 months ago when you murdered thousands of my people? Behind Reed, Dr. Vasquez worked at a computer terminal. She was uploading a virus into the coalition's communication network using access codes taken from the captured command ship. The virus would spread through every Vrector and Zephyrian system, causing power grids to fail and communication networks to go dark. You see, General, Reed continued, you made a fundamental error in judgment. You thought betraying us would end the war. Instead, you started a new one. A war where we don't play by your rules anymore? On the main display screen, Reed could see the status of Operation Darkfall. Human fleets were moving into position around 12 coalition worlds. Not the border colonies or military outposts, the core worlds. The planets where billions of coalition citizens lived and worked. Captain Chun's voice came through the comm system from the bridge of her new flagship, the Retribution. Admiral, all task forces report ready. We're in position around the target worlds. Excellent, Captain. Begin Phase 1. Across coalition space, the carefully planted virus activated simultaneously. On Vrector Prime, the massive hive cities suddenly went dark as power systems failed. The insect beings relied on electronic communication to coordinate their society. Without it, chaos spread quickly on Zephyr Prime. The crystal towers that focused energy for the entire planet began to overload. The beautiful structures that had stood for thousands of years started to crack and shatter. The Zephyrian people watched in horror as their civilization's foundation crumbled. In the command center on Earth, Reed watched the reports come in with cold satisfaction. Supply ships were stranded without navigation systems. Military bases could not communicate with their fleets. Civilian populations found themselves cut off from food distribution networks. "Sir," reported Colonel Hayes, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 coalition colonies." "Ignore them," Reed replied. "We're not interested in surrender yet." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her computer. "The virus has spread to 80% of coalition systems. Their entire infrastructure is collapsing," Reed nodded. This was what the coalition had forced them to become. Before the betrayal, humans had been content to be junior partners in galactic civilization. They had followed the rules, protected civilians, and tried to be good neighbors, but good neighbors did not stab you in the back when you trusted them most. "Admiral," came another voice from the CUM system. This was Commander Jackson, leading the attack on the Vector industrial world of Nexus 7. "We've destroyed their orbital shipyards." "No resistance encountered. What about civilian casualties?" Reed asked. "We gave them 4 hours to evacuate the stations, sir. Most got out," Reed nodded. Humans were not monsters, despite what the coalition propaganda claimed. They would give warnings when possible, but they would not let mercy stop them from completing their mission on Vector Prime. General Zix stood in the emergency command bunker deep underground. The surface of his homeworld was in chaos. Without power, the massive hive cities could not function. Millions of Vector were trapped in darkened tunnels and chambers. How did this happen? He demanded of his staff. How did the humans penetrate our most secure systems? His communications officer, a young Vector named Crix, looked up from his instruments with desperation. "Sir, they're not just attacking our military targets. They're going after everything. Power plants, food distribution centers, water purification facilities. Surely they won't attack civilian targets," Zix said, though his voice carried doubt. "Sir, I'm receiving reports from across the sector. The humans have surrounded 12 of our core worlds. They're demanding complete surrender of all coalition military forces." Zix felt his exoskeleton grow cold. "What are their terms?" "They haven't given any terms, sir. They just keep broadcasting the same message. You wanted to see human war crimes. Now you will." Back on Earth, Reed received a priority communication from the Coalition High Council. The alien leaders appeared on his screen, their faces showing panic and confusion. "Admiral Reed," spoke the lead Vector counselor, "we must stop this madness. Billions of innocent lives are at stake." "Innocent?" Reed replied. "Were the 3,000 humans you murdered 6 months ago not innocent? Were they not civilians serving in your war against a common enemy?" The Zephyrian representative, her crystal body flickering with distress patterns, spoke next. "We were told the humans had committed atrocities. We were protecting the galaxy." "You were told lies by your own military leaders," Reed said coldly, "and you chose to believe them because it was convenient. Because it let you take our technology and resources without sharing the victory." Dr. Vasquez handed Reed a datapad, showing the latest intelligence reports. Coalition military forces were in complete disarray. Without communication networks, their fleets could not coordinate attacks or defenses. Many ships were surrendering rather than fight alone against human forces. "We're receiving surrender requests from over 200 coalition ships," reported Captain Chun. "What are your orders?" Reed considered the question carefully. The smart tactical choice would be to accept the surrenders and end the fighting quickly, but tactics were not the only consideration anymore. "Accept surrenders only from ships that jettison all weapons and shut down all systems," he replied. "Any ship that shows the slightest sign of resistance is to be destroyed immediately." "Understood, sir." Reed turned back to the coalition representatives on his screen. "You have 24 hours to order the complete and unconditional surrender of all coalition military forces. Every ship, every base, every weapons platform. And if we refuse?" asked the Vector counselor. Reed's expression did not change. "Then you'll discover what happens when you push a species that has nothing left to lose. We've already shown you that we can cripple your civilization without firing a shot. Do you really want to see what we can do when we stop being merciful?" The transmission ended, leaving the coalition leaders to face an impossible choice. They had started this war with a betrayal, thinking they could easily defeat the humans. Now they were learning that betrayal came with a price they might not be able to pay. On his flagship, Reed looked out at the stars and thought about the friends he had lost in the ambush. Captain Torres, Commander Williams, Lieutenant Foster. Good people who had died because they trusted the wrong allies. The coalition had taught humanity a valuable lesson about the nature of galactic politics. Trust was a luxury that could get you killed. Mercy was a weakness that enemies would exploit, but humanity was a quick learner. And they never forgot those who wronged them. The coalition was about to learn just how long human memory could be, and how terrible human revenge could become when all restraints were removed. The breaking point had been reached. Now came the reckoning. The 24-hour deadline had passed. The Coalition High Council had refused to surrender, believing they could still negotiate from a position of strength. They were about to learn how badly they had misjudged the situation. Admiral Marcus Reed stood on the bridge of the new human flagship, Vengeance. Around him, the largest human fleet ever assembled moved through space toward the Zephyrian core worlds. 200 ships, each armed with weapons the galaxy had never seen before. "Admiral," reported Captain Chun from her position at the tactical station. "Long-range sensors show the Coalition fleet waiting for us at Zephyr Prime. They have over 500 ships." Reed studied the enemy formation on the main screen. The Coalition had gathered their remaining military forces for one final battle. Vector destroyers flew alongside Zephyrian cruisers. Even some smaller alien species had sent ships to defend against the human attack. "They still think this is about military victory," Reed said quietly. "They don't understand that we're not here to conquer them. We're here to make sure they can never threaten us again." Dr. Vasquez joined Red at the command center. Over the past months, she had become more than just a scientist. She was now the architect of humanity's new military doctrine. Her face showed no emotion as she prepared to activate her latest creation. "The quantum disruptor is ready, Admiral," she reported. "One pulse will destroy every ship in the enemy formation simultaneously. What about their planets? The weapon is precise. It will only affect military targets. But every Coalition warship, space station, and weapons platform in this system will be eliminated instantly." Reed nodded. Before the betrayal, he would have hesitated to use such a weapon. The old Reed believed in giving enemies a chance to surrender and following the rules of war, and showing mercy to those who asked for it. That Reed had died with Captain Torres and the 3,000 other humans who trusted their allies. "Open a channel to the Coalition fleet," Reed ordered. The face of Admiral Resonance appeared on the screen. The tall Zephyrian officer's crystal body glowed with patterns of defiance and desperation. Behind him, Reed could see both Vector and other alien officers standing together in their final alliance. "Human Admiral," Resonance said, her voice ringing like broken bells, "you have shown your military superiority. We are prepared to discuss reasonable terms for ending this conflict." Reed almost smiled. "Terms? You think this is a negotiation?" "What else would you call it? You have made your point. The Coalition acknowledges that humans are not to be underestimated. We can work together to find a peaceful solution." "A peaceful solution?" Reed repeated slowly. "Like the peaceful solution you gave us 6 months ago when you murdered our people in cold blood." Admiral Resonance's glow flickered. "That was a mistake. Poor intelligence led to poor decisions. We believed you had committed war crimes against civilians." "No," Reed said, his voice growing colder. "You believed what was convenient. You wanted our technology and our resources, but you didn't want to share the victory with humans. So you created an excuse to eliminate us." The communication channel filled with static as other Coalition officers tried to speak, but Reed continued. "You made one fatal error in your planning, Admiral. You let some of us live. You should have killed every human in that ambush, because survivors remember, survivors learn, and survivors make sure that betrayal has consequences." Reed gestured to Dr. Vasquez, who activated the quantum disruptor. The weapon fired invisible. Energy across space, reaching every coalition ship simultaneously. The effect was immediate and absolute. 500 coalition vessels simply stopped existing. No explosions, no burning wreckage. One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone. Admiral Resonance and her entire fleet had been erased from reality in less than a second. "My God," whispered Colonel Hayes from his station. "They're all gone." Reed felt no satisfaction, no joy in the victory. This was not about winning a battle. This was about sending a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations. "Captain Chun, take your task force to Vector Prime. Eliminate all military installations on the planet's surface. Give the civilians 12 hours to evacuate, then destroy every weapons factory, training facility, and command center. And if they resist, then they join their fleet." Across the galaxy, the news of the Coalition fleet's destruction spread like wildfire. On hundreds of worlds, alien governments received the same message from humanity. The text was simple and direct. The Coalition betrayed humanity during the Zarian War. The Coalition has been eliminated as a military threat. Any species that attacks human interests will face the same fate. Humanity seeks no territory, no tribute, no submission. We seek only to ensure that what happened to us never happens again. On Vector Prime, General Zix stood in the ruins of his command bunker and watched human ships destroy the last of his world's defenses. The massive insect cities that had stood for thousands of years were now empty shells. His people had fled underground or evacuated to other worlds. A communication request came from the human fleet. Zix accepted it, knowing he had no choice. Captain Chun's face appeared on the screen. The human officer who had once shared meals with Vector allies now looked at them with eyes like winter ice. "General Zix," she said formally, "by the authority of the Human Defense Command, I hereby inform you that the Vector military has been dissolved. All weapons, ships, and military installations have been destroyed. Any attempt to rebuild your armed forces will result in the complete destruction of your civilization." "What about our people?" Zix asked. "What about our right to defend ourselves?" "You gave up that right when you chose betrayal over honor," Chun replied. "Your species will be allowed to continue existing, but never again as a military power. Never again as a threat to anyone." Similar scenes played out across Coalition space. The crystal cities of Zephyr Prime went dark as human forces methodically destroyed every weapons platform and military facility. The proud Zephyrian military, which had existed for 10,000 years, ceased to exist in a single day. Back on Earth, Reed addressed the human population and the galaxy beyond. His image was broadcast to every world with communication systems. 6 months ago, humanity learned a hard lesson about trust, he began. "We learned that being good allies, following the rules, and showing mercy are often seen as weaknesses by those who would exploit them." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Today, the galaxy learned a lesson in return." They learned what happens when you betray a species that remembers every wrong done to them. The Coalition thought they could use us and then discard us when convenient. They were wrong. Reed's expression hardened. "Let this be a message to every civilization in the galaxy. Humanity will no longer be anyone's junior partner. We will no longer trust in the good intentions of alien allies. We will defend ourselves by ourselves, using whatever methods we deem necessary. Any species that threatens human worlds, human ships, or human citizens will face immediate and total retaliation. We will not negotiate. We will not show mercy. We will not give second chances." The broadcast ended, leaving the galaxy to absorb the new reality. In the months that followed, a strange peace settled over human space. No alien ships approached Earth's borders. No one challenged human trade routes or colonies. The galaxy had learned to fear the species they had once dismissed as weak and trusting. Captain Chun, now Admiral Chun, established the new human military doctrine. Earth's forces would remain strong and vigilant. They would never again depend on alien allies for their security. Dr. Vasquez continued her research, developing new weapons and defenses that kept humanity ahead of any potential threat. Her laboratories became the most classified facilities in human space. And Admiral Reed, now in his 70s, looked out at the stars from his office on Earth and remembered the friends who had died because they trusted too much. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of species that would smile at you while preparing to stab you in the back. But humanity had learned to survive in such a place. They had learned to be more dangerous than any threat that might come for them. The age of human innocence was over. The age of human dominance had begun.